and counting since the internet and TV issues began for AT&T customers all over North Texas. And there's still no word when AT&T could restore everyone's service.
In Richardson, where a lightning strike at an AT&T switching station knocked out internet and U-verse service.
The video sharing website down for about an hour after experiencing an outage. Perhaps you were impacted by it. The outage affected people across the USA. No word yet, though, on what caused it.
Rotates around the earth. Now it's moving, but it's not moving from the location it's above. In other words, right now it's sending television signals, K-band, different signals. It's also military to both North and South America. It is not supposed to move. In other words, like DirecTV. If the DirecTV satellite rotated around the planet, guys, you would lose signal up for about 2/3 of the time. Something very unusual. This yellow line is not supposed to be here because it is non-moving or geostationary. The satellite is rapidly slowing down. It is not, in other words, the Earth is rotating to the left faster than the satellite is now because something has happened. The links that Tammy sent me have the most amazing video possibly that I've ever seen, guys. It is amazing. So what I'm doing now is kind of giving you some backup on what you're about to see in this video. But again, this particular satellite doesn't move. It continues to broadcast a signal over North and South America. It's called AMC-9. Now, that's in the center dot. Then the other ones are called star streaks. In other words, normally if you see a satellite that's not geostationary, that's moving, it'll be a streak, and the stars will be still behind it. But what's happening, and the reason in the video you'll see it so accurately tracked, these are radar images, by the way, is that the camera's focused in one place, straight above it, so that it doesn't have to move and track it. The satellite is staying in the same place in relationship to where its footprint is. The streaks are stars. And that's because the camera's looking up, the Earth is rotating forward at 1,000 miles an hour. And that's how you would determine the speed that of this satellite you're about to see. And what's happening is 4 objects come up behind this satellite, 3 at first, that are also being called, and they're not really sure, they didn't name them, the geostationary satellites. The first report said unknown objects. As they passed by AMC-9, which was launched by Russia, on one of their big rockets, AMC-9 starts to flash, explode. You see debris coming off of it, and now it's slowing down. They've lost communication, and they're switching their KU band, other military applications, television applications to one of their other satellites. But here is AMC-9. This came in, this is about 8 or 9 days ago. We're just now getting the film. Now, again, how would you determine the background speed? The Earth's circumference at the equator is 24,900 miles. So if you're focused, say you're dead on the equator, and you're looking up at this satellite, then you're going to come around the planet in 24.9 hours. Now this, I copied this chart on the right. They're saying close to 24 hours, slightly, a little faster than that. Look at the circumference of the Earth. So it's going to be just a little over 1,000 miles an hour. That's the speed that you see that appears to be the speed of the stars in the background, but it's actually the Earth and the stationary satellites. Now, they're calling these geostationary. They think, they couldn't name them. At first, they were called unknown. They look like the orbs that I saw in Phoenix, to be honest with you, except I saw 16. There's another one coming in behind. Now, if they are geostationary satellites, because the one in the background, guys, is much higher than, say, DirecTV. DirecTV satellites are around 22,400 miles above the Earth. This one's about 36,000 miles above our planet. So even though the closer ones would appear to be moving faster, but this is a fast overtake. Now, what's happening as they come by, that first three, we start getting flashes from the center object, which the camera's tracking. You see those flashes? Then the radar starts picking up debris coming apart from this thing. Now, have we started a Star Wars program? Because they won't name the other objects. The first report, like I said, guys, unknown objects approaching the satellite. The flashes here, we'll get a little closer on it. And again, these are radar images, so it's a little different than what you would normally see. But look at that, guys. We were looking at them at the first. And then this is the tailing object. In those same patterns, guys, the three objects in that triangle pattern with one behind it, they're all over. If you study the Phoenix lights, especially the one in spring of 2013, not the original Phoenix lights, the one that happened in 2013, I got several videos. They change formations like that. I'm not saying that's what it is, but now you're starting to see debris come off of this satellite. It's split into two pieces. It's slowing down. Now, one thing about it that's a little different from, say, the space station, which you're looking at hundreds of miles, not thousands of miles above the planet, at this height, even though they break apart, they don't fall as rapidly. They may never fall at that height. You got a lot of space debris. But as they came past this object, guys, AMC-9, again, military-related international company launched by Russian large rocket. Pull it up just a little closer here, show a little bit up now. It's a lot longer video. It's very interesting, and I will link to the original source on it. Came out of the company that was tracking that has a lot to do with building this satellite. But again, all they have to do is focus the radar on this and don't move anything. They're not having to track it. It's right above them. Until now, they're going to have to slow the camera down or back it up and have to actually track it. But here you can see it is split into two objects. And it was moving along just fine, one object with no flashes, anything like that, until it was approached. And the radar people themselves, they didn't say the other three objects were thousands of miles below it. I just said that was a possibility. Although being in a geostationary orbit, regardless of the height, those shouldn't move very far apart from each other because they still got to be above the same territory. In other words, they're saying the other objects were the same as this one, AMC-9, which I know I used to track C-band satellites. There were 24 of them for you guys that used to get the big satellites where you lived out in the country where that you couldn't get normal cable TV. They were real popular. Then DirecTV came along. But at that time, there were 24 C-band satellites. G1, G2, guys remember, G5, F3, all the way over. And your dish would move in the yard. That's because those satellites didn't move. You were just moving your dish to one place. And if you watched G5, which was the main HBO satellite, at that time, cable wasn't that big as it is now. And but again, you didn't move it. You put your dish on G5 satellite, left it locked in. Geostationary, it doesn't move from that point. So if they're focused at this and other objects are coming in under it, and they're calling them geostationary, doesn't quite make sense. Because if they're beaming down at the same place, they would have to be, even though they may be larger because they're closer, they would still have to be in that same line of that angle of sight and what they call the footprint. Guys, this is amazing. We'll try to keep up with it. You can go to our website, go down in the left side column, you'll see Tangong 1. That's what the one that's falling. It's we're talking about it coming down sometimes this year, and I have seen it drop 25, 30 miles since we started watching it. Closer it gets to around 100 kilometers above the planet, the friction and the speed's going to take over, and Tangong 1 will start to strip off all of its solar panels because of the friction, and it's going to fall to Earth. It's a pretty big unit. It was once part of the Chinese space station the way that our International Space Station is, but now they've abandoned that and got the new Heavenly Palace 2 and possibly 3 they're working on now. But guys, these are amazing images. And what overtook this thing. And I think it did because radar calls in, it's being approached by unknown objects. Starts flashing, coming apart, they go past, another one comes up behind it. Now they have no control over it, and they've had to switch all their programming. Again, I have two things that I would say. One is that we have Star Wars that are between militaries on this planet, or we have another race that's also not from another planet, but that many have talked about people that have been here for a long time, going back to the Anunnaki guys, the ancient Sumerian legends. And because this had military implications, it was an older satellite, but it was still functioning. Was it taken out on purpose? Or is it a international, and that would explain it looking like the orbs over Arizona. And again, they came right over my head, guys, the 16 of them. I mean, right over me at 100 feet. Just as the sun was setting, I had a real good view of them. And that's what that looked like to me. And when the Hopis told me that when I described to them and showed the pictures of some of the people from that area, which is heavily Native American from the Gila River northward towards Sedona and Albuquerque, because they told me that it was called the Flying Shields and they were benevolent beings. Either that, or we, or somebody that doesn't like Russia, or whoever actually was paying the company that operated the satellite for the information coming from it, that somebody didn't want that to be put out. Regardless of who it was, that satellite got took out. I have no doubt about that. So you got either Star Wars going on internationally, or we have something else taking out the satellite. We're watching it, guys. It's a heads up. Be safe. I've got an update coming up probably early tonight. There's a system I'm watching in the Atlantic Ocean. It has a 50% chance of developing in 5 days. And I'm going to come in with the maps, guys, when I have a little more time, and show you where it's headed towards the United States, tracking just the way the southerly Atlantic hurricanes come in just above the islands and above South America. But we'll take a detailed look at that this evening.